The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the bustling airport. Travelers hurried past, dragging suitcases, clutching boarding passes, and chatting on their phones. Among them was a young soldier in uniform, his posture straight, his face calm but tired. He had just returned from a long deployment and was eager to get home. His eyes scanned the crowd, taking in the chaos of the terminal, when something caught his attention. Near the gate, an elderly man in a wheelchair struggled to reach for his bag, which had fallen to the floor. The man was a disabled veteran, his hat bearing the insignia of his service. His hands trembled as he tried to grip the bag, but it was just out of reach. The soldier noticed immediately and without hesitation, he stepped forward to help. But as he bent down to pick up the bag, a voice stopped him. "Sir, I'm sorry, but you're not allowed to assist passengers. It's against protocol." The soldier looked up to see a uniformed airline employee standing nearby, her expression firm but apologetic. The soldier was confused. He wasn't trying to cause trouble, he just wanted to help. He explained that he was a fellow serviceman and that it was his duty to assist a veteran in need. The employee shook her head. "I understand, sir, but rules are rules. Only authorized personnel can assist passengers with mobility issues." The soldier stood there for a moment, torn between his instinct to help and the need to follow orders. He glanced at the elderly veteran, who was still struggling, and felt a pang of guilt. But he had no choice. He stepped back, his heart heavy. The scene didn't go unnoticed. A young woman sitting nearby had been watching everything unfold. She was in her mid-20s, dressed casually, with a kind face and a determined look in her eyes. She had been scrolling through her phone but now put it away, her attention fully on the veteran. Without a second thought, she stood up and walked over to him. "Let me help you with that," she said softly, bending down to pick up the bag. The veteran looked up at her, surprised but grateful. "Thank you, miss," he said, his voice shaky but warm. The woman smiled and handed him the bag, then adjusted his blanket to make him more comfortable. She didn't know him, but she could see he needed help, and she wasn't going to let rules stop her. Her action sparked something in the other passengers. A middle-aged man in a business suit, who had been typing furiously on his laptop, closed it and stood up. "Do you need anything else, sir?" he asked the veteran. The veteran shook his head, but the man stayed nearby, just in case. A few rows away, a mother with 2 young children noticed what was happening. She whispered something to her kids, and they nodded. Together, they walked over and offered the veteran a bottle of water. The soldier watched all of this from a distance, his emotions swirling. He felt a mix of frustration and admiration. Frustration because he hadn't been able to help, and admiration because strangers had stepped up when he couldn't. He wanted to say something, to thank them, but he didn't know how. Instead, he stood there, silently observing the kindness unfolding before him. As the boarding process began, the airline employee approached the veteran to assist him onto the plane. But before she could, the young woman who had helped earlier stepped forward again. "I'll take care of him," she said firmly. The employee hesitated but then nodded, stepping aside. The woman gently pushed the veteran's wheelchair toward the gate, chatting with him as they went. The other passengers followed, forming a small, unspoken team to ensure the veteran was comfortable. The soldier finally boarded the plane, his mind still replaying the events. He found his seat and sat down, staring out the window as the plane taxied down the runway. He thought about the veteran, the passengers, and the rules that had stopped him from helping. He wondered why things had to be so complicated. But as the plane lifted into the sky, he felt a sense of hope. Despite the challenges, there were still good people in the world, people who cared enough to step up when others couldn't. Little did he know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would bring strangers together in ways no one could have predicted. The soldier, the veteran, and the passengers were about to become part of a story that would remind everyone of the power of kindness, even in the face of obstacles. And as the plane soared through the clouds, the first chapter of that story was already being written. As the plane leveled off at cruising altitude, the cabin settled into a quiet hum. The soft whir of the engines and the occasional ding of seatbelt signs created a calming atmosphere. The soldier, seated a few rows behind the veteran, couldn't stop thinking about what had happened at the gate. He glanced over occasionally, watching as the young woman who had helped the veteran now sat beside him, engaging him in conversation. Her kindness had sparked something in the other passengers, and the soldier felt a strange sense of pride, even though he hadn't been able to help directly. The veteran, though frail, had a sparkle in his eyes as he spoke to the young woman. He shared stories of his time in the service, his voice steady but filled with emotion. The woman listened intently, nodding and smiling, her genuine interest making the veteran feel valued. Nearby, the businessman who had offered assistance earlier was now flipping through a magazine, but his attention kept drifting toward the pair. He seemed to be wrestling with something internally, as if their interaction had stirred memories of his own. A flight attendant walked down the aisle, offering drinks and snacks. When she reached the veteran, she paused and smiled warmly. "Can I get you anything, sir?" she asked. The veteran requested a cup of water, and the flight attendant quickly returned with it, along with a small packet of cookies. "On the house," she said with a wink. The veteran thanked her, his gratitude evident. The soldier, observing all of this, felt a lump form in his throat. He had spent years serving his country, following orders, and upholding discipline. But here, in this confined space, he was witnessing something equally powerful, the unscripted, unregulated kindness of strangers. It was messy, unpredictable, and beautiful. He wondered if he could ever be part of something like that, or if his training had made him too rigid, too bound by rules. Meanwhile, the mother with the two young children was quietly explaining to her kids what had happened earlier. "Sometimes, people need help, and it's important to step up, even if it's not your job," she said. The children nodded, their young minds absorbing the lesson. One of them, a boy no older than 6, turned to his mother and asked, "Can we do something nice for him too?" The mother smiled and nodded, encouraging him to think of something. A few minutes later, the boy walked up to the veteran, holding a small drawing he had made during the flight. It was a colorful picture of a plane with a big sun in the corner. "This is for you," the boy said shyly, handing it to the veteran. The veteran's eyes welled up as he took the drawing. "Thank you, young man," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "This means a lot to me." The boy beamed and returned to his seat, his small act of kindness leaving a big impact. The soldier, watching this exchange, felt a surge of emotion. He realized that kindness wasn't about grand gestures or following protocols. It was about small, genuine acts that came from the heart. He wanted to be part of it, to contribute in some way, but he wasn't sure how. Just then, the young woman who had been sitting with the veteran stood up and walked toward the restroom. As she passed the soldier's row, he caught her eye and gave her a small nod of appreciation. She smiled back, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. When the woman returned to her seat, the veteran turned to her and said, "You know, I didn't expect today to be so special. But meeting all of you, it's reminded me that there's still good in the world." The woman patted his hand gently. "We're all in this together," she replied. "Sometimes, we just need to look out for each other." The businessman, overhearing their conversation, finally spoke up. "You're right," he said, his voice tinged with regret. "I've been so caught up in my own world that I've forgotten what really matters. Thank you for reminding me." The veteran nodded, a knowing smile on his face. "It's never too late to make a difference," he said. As the flight continued, the atmosphere in the cabin shifted. Strangers who had boarded the plane as individuals now felt connected by an invisible thread of compassion. The soldier, though still quiet, felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced in a long time. He realized that sometimes, the most meaningful battles weren't fought on the battlefield but in the everyday moments of human connection. The plane began its descent, and the captain's voice came over the intercom, announcing their arrival. As passengers prepared to disembark, the soldier made a decision. He stood up and walked over to the veteran, extending his hand. "Thank you for your service, sir," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. The veteran shook his hand firmly, his eyes locking with the soldier's. "No, son," he said. "Thank you for yours." In that moment, the soldier felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He had been unable to help earlier, but now he had found a way to connect, to honor the veteran in his own way. As he stepped off the plane, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't the end of the story, it was just the beginning. And he was ready to be part of whatever came next. The airport terminal was a whirlwind of activity as passengers from the flight dispersed, heading toward baggage claim, rideshares, or connecting flights. The soldier lingered near the gate, his duffel bag slung over his shoulder, watching as the young woman and the businessman helped the veteran navigate the busy terminal. The veteran's wheelchair moved slowly, but the group around him made sure he was comfortable and safe. The soldier felt a pull to join them, but he hesitated, unsure if he should intrude. As they approached the baggage claim area, the young woman noticed the soldier standing nearby. She waved him over with a warm smile. "Hey, come join us," she called out. The soldier hesitated for a moment, then walked over, his boots clicking against the polished floor. "I just wanted to make sure he's okay," the soldier said, nodding toward the veteran. The woman smiled. "We've got him, but we could always use an extra hand." The veteran looked up at the soldier, his eyes twinkling. "You've done enough just by being here," he said. "But I won't say no to a little more help." The soldier chuckled, feeling a sense of camaraderie he hadn't felt in a long time. Together, the group made their way to the baggage carousel, where the veteran's suitcase soon appeared. The businessman quickly grabbed it, placing it gently on the ground next to the wheelchair. As they waited for the veteran's ride to arrive, the group struck up a conversation. The young woman introduced herself as a teacher who had been visiting family. The businessman shared that he was a financial consultant, often too busy to notice the world around him. The soldier simply said, "I'm just trying to find my way back to normal life." The veteran listened quietly, his presence a steady anchor for the group. When the veteran's ride finally arrived, a small van driven by a friendly-looking man, the group helped him into the vehicle. The veteran turned to them before leaving, his voice filled with gratitude. "You've all made an old man very happy today," he said. "Remember, kindness doesn't cost a thing, but it's worth everything." With that, the van drove off, leaving the group standing together in the cool evening air. The young woman turned to the soldier and the businessman. "This doesn't have to end here," she said. "We've all seen how powerful it is to help someone. Why don't we keep it going?" The businessman nodded thoughtfully. "I've been so focused on work that I've forgotten what really matters. Maybe it's time to make a change." The soldier agreed. "I've spent so much time following orders that I've forgotten how to just be human. I want to do more." The trio exchanged contact information, promising to stay in touch and look for ways to make a difference in their communities. As they parted ways, the soldier felt a sense of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. He realized that the journey he had started on that plane wasn't just about helping one veteran, it was about rediscovering the power of human connection. Later that night, as the soldier settled into his hotel room, he thought about the day's events. He pulled out his phone and sent a message to the group chat they had created. "Today was just the beginning," he wrote. "Let's see where this takes us." Within minutes, the young woman replied, "I'm in. Let's make a difference." The businessman added, "Count me in too. It's time to give back." As the soldier lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain, he was ready to be part of something bigger than himself. And as he drifted off to sleep, he couldn't help but smile, knowing that the ripple of kindness they had started was only just beginning to spread. The next morning, the soldier woke up early, his mind buzzing with ideas. He checked his phone and saw a message from the young woman in the group chat. She had shared a link to a local volunteer organization that helped veterans in need. "This could be a good place to start," she wrote. The soldier clicked on the link and began scrolling through the website. The organization provided everything from housing assistance to job training for veterans, and they were always looking for volunteers. The businessman chimed in next. "I've been thinking about how I can use my skills to help," he wrote. "Maybe I can offer free financial planning workshops for veterans. A lot of them struggle with money after leaving the service." The soldier smiled as he read the message. It was amazing how quickly the group had gone from strangers to teammates, united by a shared goal. Later that day, the soldier decided to visit the volunteer organization in person. The office was small but welcoming, with photos of veterans and their families covering the walls. A friendly staff member greeted him and explained how he could get involved. "We're always looking for people who care," she said. "Even small actions can make a big difference." The soldier signed up on the spot, feeling a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in a long time. Meanwhile, the young woman was busy planning her own contribution. As a teacher, she had access to a network of students and parents who were always eager to help with community projects. She decided to organize a care package drive for veterans, collecting essentials like toiletries, socks, and snacks. She sent out an email to her school community, and within hours, responses started pouring in. People were eager to help, and their enthusiasm only fueled her determination. The businessman, true to his word, reached out to the same organization the soldier had visited. He proposed his idea for financial planning workshops, and the staff loved it. "Many of our veterans struggle with budgeting and saving," they told him. "Your expertise could really change lives." The businessman felt a surge of pride. For the first time in years, his work felt meaningful, not just profitable. Over the next few days, the group stayed in constant contact, sharing updates and encouraging each other. The soldier helped organize a fundraising event, using his discipline and leadership skills to coordinate logistics. The young woman's care package drive was a huge success, with dozens of boxes filled and ready to be delivered. The businessman finalized the details for his first workshop, preparing materials and practicing his presentation. When the day of the fundraising event arrived, the soldier felt a mix of nerves and excitement. He had never organized something like this before, but he was determined to make it a success. The event was held at a local community center, and to his surprise, it was packed. People from all walks of life had come out to support the cause, including the young woman and the businessman. Seeing them in the crowd gave him a boost of confidence. As he stood on the small stage, microphone in hand, the soldier looked out at the sea of faces. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steady. "This isn't just about raising money. It's about showing our veterans that they're not forgotten, that we care about them and their sacrifices." The crowd erupted in applause, and the soldier felt a lump in his throat. He had spent so much of his life following orders, but now he was leading, and it felt right. The event was a huge success, raising enough money to support several veterans for months. As the crowd began to disperse, the young woman and the businessman approached the soldier. "You did an amazing job," the woman said, her eyes shining with pride. The businessman clapped him on the shoulder. "This is just the beginning," he said. "We're making a real difference." As the three of them stood together, surrounded by the buzz of the event, the soldier felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had started this journey feeling lost and disconnected, but now he had found a new mission, one that didn't involve guns or orders, but kindness and connection. And as he looked at his new friends, he knew they were just getting started. The success of the fundraising event energized the group, and they quickly began planning their next steps. The soldier, the young woman, and the businessmen met at a cozy cafe to discuss their progress and brainstorm new ideas. The atmosphere was lively, filled with laughter and a shared sense of purpose. For the first time in a long time, each of them felt like they were part of something bigger than themselves. The young woman shared updates about her care package drive. "We've collected over 100 boxes so far," she said, her eyes sparkling with pride. "The students and their families have been incredible. Some of the kids even wrote letters to the veterans, thanking them for their service." The soldier smiled, imagining the impact those letters would have. "That's amazing," he said. "Sometimes, it's the small gestures that mean the most." The businessman chimed in, sharing details about his upcoming financial planning workshop. "I've got everything ready for the first session," he said. "I've even created a workbook to help veterans track their expenses and set financial goals." The young woman nodded approvingly. "That's going to make such a difference," she said. "A lot of people don't realize how hard it can be to adjust to civilian life." As they talked, the soldier brought up an idea he had been mulling over. "What if we expanded our efforts?" he asked. "There are so many veterans out there who need help, and we've only scratched the surface. Maybe we could create a network of volunteers, people who are willing to step up and make a difference." The others nodded, intrigued by the idea. "We could call it something like Veterans Bridge," the young woman suggested. "A way to connect those who need help with those who want to give it." The name stuck, and by the end of their meeting, they had a rough plan in place. The soldier would take the lead on recruiting volunteers, using his military connections to spread the word. The young woman would focus on community outreach, organizing events and drives to keep the momentum going. The businessman would handle the logistics, using his organizational skills to ensure everything ran smoothly. Together, they were determined to build something that would last. Over the next few weeks, their efforts began to bear fruit. The soldier reached out to former comrades, many of whom were eager to get involved. "It's about time we did something like this," one of them said. "We've been through a lot together, and now we can use that bond to help others." The young woman's school community continued to support her efforts, with students and parents alike pitching in to pack care packages and write letters. The businessman's first workshop was a resounding success, with veterans expressing gratitude for the practical advice and support. One evening, as the group gathered to review their progress, the young woman shared a story that touched everyone's hearts. "One of the veterans who attended the workshop came up to me afterward," she said. "He told me that he'd been struggling for years, feeling like no one understood what he was going through. But after the workshop, he said he finally felt seen and heard. He even signed up to volunteer with us." The soldier felt a swell of pride. "That's what this is all about," he said. "Making sure no one feels alone." As their network grew, so did their impact. They began partnering with local businesses, schools, and community organizations, creating a web of support that reached far beyond what they had initially imagined. The soldier found himself speaking at events, sharing his story and inspiring others to get involved. The young woman's care packages became a symbol of hope, delivered to veterans across the region. The businessman's workshops expanded, offering not just financial planning but also career counseling and mental health resources. Despite their busy schedules, the group made time to meet regularly, their bond growing stronger with each passing week. They celebrated their successes and supported each other through challenges, united by a shared vision. One evening, as they sat together after a long day of planning, the soldier looked around the table and smiled. "I never thought I'd find something like this after leaving the service," he said. "But now, I can't imagine my life without it." The young woman nodded. "We've built something really special," she said. "And the best part is, it's just the beginning." The businessman raised his coffee cup in a toast. "To Veterans Bridge," he said. "And to the people we've helped, and the ones we'll help next." As they clinked their cups together, the soldier felt a deep sense of gratitude. They had started with a simple act of kindness on a plane, and now they were changing lives. And as he looked at his friends, he knew they were just getting started. As Veterans Bridge continued to grow, so did the challenges. The group quickly realized that helping others on a larger scale wasn't always smooth sailing. There were logistical hurdles, funding shortages, and moments of doubt. But with each obstacle, they found a way to push forward, their determination fueled by the stories of the veterans they were helping. One of the first major challenges came when the young woman's care package drive hit a snag. The demand for packages had grown so much that they were running out of supplies. "We've got more veterans signing up than we anticipated," she told the group during one of their meetings. "I don't want to turn anyone away, but we're stretched thin." The soldier leaned forward, his brow furrowed in thought. "What if we reached out to other schools or community groups?" he suggested. "Maybe they'd be willing to host their own drives and help us meet the demand." The young woman liked the idea and immediately got to work. She reached out to local schools, churches, and even businesses, explaining their mission and asking for support. The response was overwhelming. Within days, several organizations had pledged to host their own care package drives, and donations began pouring in. "It's amazing how many people want to help," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "We just had to ask." Meanwhile, the businessman was facing his own set of challenges. His financial planning workshops were becoming so popular that he was struggling to keep up with the demand. "I'm only one person," he admitted during a group call. "I can't be everywhere at once, and I don't want to let anyone down." The soldier, ever the problem solver, suggested they recruit more volunteers with financial expertise. "There have to be other professionals out there who'd be willing to lend a hand," he said. The businessman took the advice to heart and began reaching out to colleagues and contacts in his industry. To his surprise, many were eager to get involved. "I've been looking for a way to give back," one financial advisor told him. "This is perfect." Soon, a team of volunteers was leading workshops across the region, ensuring that every veteran who needed help could get it. Despite these successes, there were moments when the weight of their mission felt overwhelming. One evening, after a particularly long day, the soldier found himself sitting alone in his apartment, staring at a pile of paperwork. He had spent hours coordinating volunteers, organizing events, and answering emails, and he was exhausted. For a brief moment, he wondered if they were making a real difference or just spinning their wheels. Just then, his phone buzzed. It was a message from one of the veterans they had helped. "I just wanted to say thank you," it read. "Because of you, I finally feel like I have a future. You've given me hope." The soldier read the message twice, his eyes filling with tears. In that moment, all his doubts melted away. This was why they were doing what they were doing. This was what made it all worth it. The next day, the group met for their weekly check-in. The soldier shared the message he had received, and it sparked a heartfelt conversation. "We're making a difference," the young woman said, her voice steady but emotional. "It's not always easy, but it's worth it." The businessman nodded. "We're building something that's going to outlast us," he said. "And that's pretty incredible." As they continued to work together, the group found strength in their shared purpose. They celebrated every victory, no matter how small, and supported each other through every challenge. The soldier, who had once felt lost and disconnected, now felt a deep sense of belonging. The young woman, who had always believed in the power of kindness, saw her faith in humanity reaffirmed every day. The businessman, who had once been consumed by his career, discovered a new sense of fulfillment. One evening, as they wrapped up another meeting, the soldier looked around the table and smiled. "We've come a long way," he said. "And we've still got a long way to go. But I know we can do it, together." The young woman and the businessman nodded, their faces filled with determination. They had started with a simple act of kindness on a plane, and now they were changing lives. And as they looked at each other, they knew they were just getting started. The momentum behind Veterans Bridge continued to build, and soon the group found themselves at the center of a growing movement. What had started as a small effort to help one veteran had blossomed into a community-wide initiative, with people from all walks of life stepping up to contribute. The soldier, the young woman, and the businessmen were amazed by the outpouring of support, but they also knew they had to channel it effectively to keep making a difference. One of their biggest breakthroughs came when a local news station caught wind of their story. A reporter reached out, asking to feature Veterans Bridge in a segment about community heroes. The group was hesitant at first, none of them had sought attention, but they realized it was an opportunity to spread the word and inspire others. "If this helps more veterans, then it's worth it," the soldier said, and the others agreed. The day of the interview was nerve-wracking but exciting. The reporter arrived at the community center where the group often met, cameras in tow. She asked them about their mission, their challenges, and the impact they had seen so far. The young woman spoke passionately about the care packages and the letters from students. The businessman shared stories from his workshops, highlighting the veterans who had turned their lives around with a little financial guidance. And the soldier talked about the importance of community, of not letting anyone feel forgotten. When the segment aired later that week, the response was overwhelming. The phone at the Veterans Bridge office rang non-stop, with people calling to offer donations, volunteer their time, or simply say thank you. Social media was flooded with messages of support, and the group's website saw a surge in traffic. "I had no idea it would blow up like this," the young woman said, scrolling through the comments. "But I'm so glad it did." With the increased visibility came new opportunities. A local business owner reached out, offering to host a fundraising gala for Veterans Bridge. A retired teacher volunteered to organize a mentorship program, pairing veterans with community members who could offer guidance and support. Even the airport where their journey had begun reached out, asking if they could collaborate on a campaign to honor veterans during the holiday season. But with the growth came new challenges. The group quickly realized they needed to formalize their efforts to keep up with the demand. They decided to establish Veterans Bridge as a non-profit organization, complete with a board of directors and a clear mission statement. The businessman took the lead on the paperwork, using his expertise to navigate the legal and financial complexities. "This is a big step," he said during one of their meetings. "But it's the right one. It'll help us make an even bigger impact." As they worked to formalize the organization, the group also made time to reflect on how far they had come. One evening, they gathered at the soldier's apartment, sharing a meal and reminiscing about their journey. "Remember when we first met on that plane?" the young woman asked, laughing. "I had no idea it would lead to this." The businessman nodded. "It's funny how life works sometimes," he said. "One small act of kindness can change everything." The soldier, who had been quiet for most of the evening, finally spoke up. "I've been thinking a lot about the veteran we met that day," he said. "I wonder how he's doing." The group fell silent for a moment, each of them lost in thought. "Maybe we should try to find him," the young woman suggested. "I'd love to let him know how much he inspired us." The soldier smiled. "That's a great idea," he said. "After all, he's the reason we're here." As the evening wound down, the group made plans to track down the veteran who had started it all. They didn't know if they'd succeed, but they were determined to try. In the meantime, they focused on the work ahead, knowing that every care package, every workshop, and every act of kindness was making a difference. The next morning, as the soldier walked into the Veterans Bridge office, he felt a sense of pride he hadn't felt in years. The walls were covered with photos of the veterans they had helped, their smiles a testament to the power of community. He knew there would be more challenges ahead, but he also knew they could face them, together. And as he looked around the room, he felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought them here. The group's decision to find the veteran who had inspired their journey became a new mission. They didn't have much to go on, just a memory of his face, his wheelchair, and the hat he wore bearing his service insignia. But they were determined. The soldier reached out to the airline, hoping they might have records of passengers who needed assistance that day. The young woman posted on social media, sharing the story and asking for help. The businessman used his network to spread the word, hoping someone might recognize the veteran. Days turned into weeks, and just as they were about to give up, a breakthrough came. A woman in her 60s reached out to the young woman after seeing her post. "I think that might be my uncle," she wrote. "He's a veteran, and he was on a flight around that time. He mentioned something about kind strangers helping him at the airport." The young woman's heart raced as she read the message. She immediately shared it with the group, and they arranged to meet the woman the next day. The meeting took place at a small cafe, the atmosphere tense with anticipation. The woman introduced herself as the veteran's niece and explained that her uncle had been struggling since returning from service. "He doesn't talk much about it," she said, "but I know he's been lonely." That day at the airport meant a lot to him. He talked about it for weeks. The soldier felt a lump in his throat. "We'd really like to see him," he said. "If he's willing, of course." The niece agreed to arrange a meeting, and a few days later, the group found themselves standing outside the veteran's modest home. The soldier knocked on the door, his heart pounding. When the door opened, there he was, the same man they had met at the airport, his eyes widening in recognition. "It's you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I can't believe it's you." The group spent the afternoon with the veteran, sharing stories and catching up. They told him about Veterans Bridge and how his kindness had inspired them to start the organization. The veteran listened quietly, his eyes glistening with tears. "I had no idea," he said when they finished. "I was just trying to get through the day. I didn't think I was doing anything special." The young woman shook her head. "You were," she said. "You reminded us what it means to care for each other. You started something that's helping so many people now." The veteran smiled, a deep, genuine smile that lit up his face. "I don't know what to say," he said. "Except thank you. Thank you for not forgetting me." As the visit came to an end, the group made a promise to stay in touch. They invited the veteran to be an honorary member of Veterans Bridge, and he gladly accepted. "I might not be able to do much," he said, "but I'll do whatever I can to help." The soldier clapped him on the shoulder. "You've already done more than you know," he said. On the drive back, the group reflected on the meeting. "It's funny," the young woman said. "We set out to find him because we wanted to thank him. But I feel like we're the ones who got the gift." The businessman nodded. "He reminded us why we started this in the first place," he said. "It's not about the big gestures. It's about the small moments of connection." The soldier, who had been quiet for most of the ride, finally spoke up. "I think this is just the beginning," he said. "We've come so far, but there's still so much more we can do." The others agreed, their determination renewed. They had found the veteran who had inspired them, but they knew their work was far from over. That evening, as the soldier sat alone in his apartment, he thought about the day's events. He had started this journey feeling lost, but now he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. He thought about the veteran, about the young woman and the businessman, and about all the people they had helped along the way. And as he looked at the photo of the group they had taken that afternoon, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. They had started with a simple act of kindness, and now they were changing lives. And as he drifted off to sleep, he knew they were just getting started. The meeting with the veteran marked a turning point for Veterans Bridge. His story became a cornerstone of their mission, a reminder of why they had started and what they were working toward. The group decided to honor him by naming their new mentorship program after him, ensuring that his legacy would live on in the lives of the veterans they helped. The mentorship program quickly became one of their most successful initiatives. Veterans were paired with community members who could offer guidance, support, and friendship. The program not only helped veterans adjust to civilian life but also fostered a sense of connection and belonging. The veteran himself became a mentor, sharing his experiences and wisdom with others who were struggling. "It's like I've found a new purpose," he told the group during one of their meetings. "And it's all thanks to you." As Veterans Bridge continued to grow, so did its impact. The care package drives expanded to include other essentials like warm clothing and books, and the financial planning workshops evolved into a full-fledged resource center. The group even partnered with local businesses to create job training programs, helping veterans build new skills and find meaningful employment. The soldier, the young woman, and the businessman remained at the heart of it all, their bond stronger than ever. They had started as strangers brought together by a single act of kindness, but now they were a team, united by a shared vision. They celebrated their successes and supported each other through challenges, their friendship a source of strength and inspiration. One evening, as they gathered to celebrate the one-year anniversary of Veterans Bridge, the group took a moment to reflect on how far they had come. The young woman raised her glass in a toast. "To us," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "And to everyone who believed in us, who supported us, and who helped us make a difference." The soldier and the businessman clinked their glasses against hers, their faces filled with pride. The veteran, who had become an integral part of their team, stood up to speak. "I've been thinking a lot about that day at the airport," he said. "I was just trying to get through the day, but you all saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. You reminded me that I mattered, that my story mattered. And now, because of you, I get to help others feel the same way. So thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you." The room erupted in applause, and the soldier felt a lump in his throat. He looked around at the faces of the people he had come to care about so deeply, and he felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't felt in years. They had started with a simple act of kindness, and now they were changing lives. And as he looked at the veteran, he knew they were just getting started. The evening ended with a promise to keep pushing forward, to keep finding new ways to help and inspire. As the group said their goodbyes, the soldier felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had started this journey feeling lost, but now he had found a new mission, a new family, and a new sense of purpose. And as he walked out into the cool night air, he knew that the ripple of kindness they had started would continue to spread, touching lives in ways they could never have imagined. The story of Veterans Bridge was far from over. It was a story of hope, of connection, and of the power of kindness to change lives. And as the soldier looked up at the stars, he felt a deep sense of peace. They had started with a simple act of kindness, and now they were changing the world, one veteran, one care package, one workshop at a time.